We're going to make tariffs great again, and there's nothing they can do about it. I'm Joshua Lisec, the New York Times bestselling author and co-author, ghostwriter of 97 nonfiction books, including a couple about tariff history, and a certified hypnotist. Through this strange, eclectic, unique set of experiences, I'm able to curate current events to teach you how to better influence the VIPs of your life and career. Today, we're going to talk about tariffs because most people don't understand that tariffs used to be the sort of external revenue service, which is what President Donald Trump is going to be creating, may already have by the time you've seen this video. Tariffs are, of course, duties. They're import taxes. It's a price of admission that you have to pay to enter into another country and sell stuff to those people. When you think about it that way, it's kind of only fair. Fair in that if country A wants to sell their product in country B, that impacts country B up to and including their national government. And therefore, the national government of country B ought to do what is in the best interest of those citizens. It just makes sense. Now, you might be familiar with President Theodore Roosevelt, whose policies around tariffs are, together with the national parks, the two primary reasons, and of course, trust busting, that is, ripping apart monopolies from the limbs, which is what we need metaphorically, I should say, done to big tech. Metaphorically only, people. Metaphorically only. We're not leftists. President Roosevelt is on Mount Rushmore next to George effing Washington for, among other reasons, those three: national parks, trust busting, ridding monopolies from being able to offer lower quality at higher prices, and naturally, of course, tariffs. Now, people will say, oh, tariffs put America last. Oh, tariffs are doing this, blah, 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 blah. Here's what they don't understand. Tariffs are to protect American workers. And I'm going to read you a set of speeches from 1902 to 1912. President and then former president, and then he became a presidential candidate once again, back when you can have multiple terms. He said as follows, in 1902, our past experience shows that great prosperity in this country has always come under a protective tariff. Key word, protective. Protective of whom? Big companies? Big corporations? The rich? The powerful? No, don't have that TDS fit, okay? Listen. If business has prospered under tariffs and is prospering, it is better to endure for a time slight inconveniences and inequalities in some schedules than to upset business by too quick and too radical changes. Meaning, don't get rid of the tariffs if things are going okay. Wow, it's not just we not to have them, it's we ought not get rid of them. He continued, preserve the principle which underlies our whole tariff system, the principle of putting American business interests at least on a full equality with interests abroad. So this is not simply America first. Let's do the entry level. Let's do minimum viable nationalism, okay? Minimum viable acceptable patriotism. Put American business interests at least on the same level with foreign interests. This is American equality, global equality. The left side, they want that, right? And yet they're screeching about closing the border, which is not fair, and tariffs, which are not fair. You know, one of the reasons why I believe that the left screeches so much about anything that is America first is because they consider themselves citizens of the world. If you talk to an NPR American recently, they may have even used that expression. Why are they that way? Well, if you talk to them further, they will say something to the effect of, you know, America has oppressed so many countries and we're so white and the oppressed are so brown. And so, you know, we've been bullied, so we can take it, right? We can dish it out. We can take it too. It's only fair. And then you go to Youngstown, Ohio. Then you go to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Then you go to Wheeling, West Virginia. Then you go to Little Rock, Arkansas. And you shut the F up. Going on. The well-being of the wage worker should be treated as an essential in shaping our whole economic policy. There must never be any change which will jeopardize the standard of comfort, the standard of wages of the American worker. There must never be any change that will jeopardize the standard of wages of the American wage worker. That's the little guy. President Roosevelt was proudly called a progressive for this very reason. It was progress to go, wait a second, what about the well-being of the poor person? Teddy Roosevelt, of course, was a contemporary of the NCR entrepreneur, John H. Patterson, who's from down the street, literally from me, where I live in Ohio. He revolutionized the standard of living of the wage worker from the entrepreneur's perspective, treating humans like human beings, thinking of like having ventilation properly in his factories, having natural sunlight, offering employee meals, clean water, breaks, shorter work days, so they wouldn't have to work from night to night effectively, right? Dawn to dusk. He was initially laughed at, but then the standard of living meant more enthusiasm, meant higher morale, meant greater productivity. It also meant less turnover because people weren't dying from their jobs. Everyone started copying him. This was what progress was from that perspective. He was also a populist, progressive and populist, which came together. Progress for the little guy, the person, the American wage worker. There must always be as a minimum a tariff which will not only allow for the collection of an ample revenue, but which will at least make good the difference in cost of production here and abroad for the well-being of the wage worker. So what that means is we need to make it in America, even if Americans have to pay more, because Americans working American jobs are going to get paid more than if they had to take another job in order to making that thing cheaper in another country. So the math checks out. The math of tariffs makes sense from the American worker's perspective. In my opinion, the American people favor the principle of a protective tariff, but they desire such a tariff to be established primarily in the interests of the wage worker and the consumer, not to protect those trusts that he was so focused on busting, those monopolies. To say that a protective tariff is unconstitutional, as the Democratic platform insists, is only excusable on a theory of the Constitution, which would make it unconstitutional to legislate in any shape or way for the betterment of societal and industrial conditions. Isn't that interesting? True populist, man of the people. The abolition of the protective tariff, as proposed by the Democratic platform, would plunge the country into the most widespread industrial depression we have yet seen, and this depression would continue for an indefinite period. He was wrong about one thing. Tariffs got slowly backed off, but they were replaced by the income tax just a few years later. Ooh. Instead of taxing other countries, specifically other countries' rich business people, let's tax our own citizenry, make them subjects. No conditions have been shown which warrant us in believing that the abolition of the protective tariff as a whole would bring any substantial benefit to the consumer. Abolishing tariffs would certainly cause unheard of immediate disaster to all wage workers, all businessmen, and all farmers, and in all probability would permanently lower the standard of living here. And that is exactly what happened. Shipping jobs to China, hollowed out the homeland. Tariffs are for the protection and encouragement of American industry so as to secure higher wages and better conditions of life for American laborers. That was 1912, the last one. They went in chronological order. Now, if you have anyone in your life who is hemming and hawing about tariffs, just go to the OG. What does the OG say about it? And that goes for every subject. If someone is is disagreeing with you on a subject, just go to the original source. What does the original source have to say? They will probably be slightly humiliated. And sometimes that's the most persuasive thing you can do.